Today on the podcast, I have Teresa Lopez. She's the founder of Green Energy Money, and she has 35 plus years of mortgage banking experience. Teresa, happy to have you on the show.
Glad to be here.
I know it took us a while to get here, but we finally got it scheduled. So, I'm curious if you could tell me a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got in the green energy business.
Well, I drank the green Kool-Aid in 1998, and I started, and I had my own mortgage company called Dream Source Financial back then. So I was in Boulder, Colorado, and the only thing available inventory-wise in housing at the time was straw bale and, polystyrene foam domes and, earthships. I did a whole earthship community house. Actually, I'm going to be visiting the Taos next week when I'm in New Mexico. So I did a whole community. I brought Washington Mutual in. They spent the night in earthships overnight. That was quite an ordeal and adventure. And I just began to build the story and learn the business. This whole space is very unique to any other space that anyone's ever engaged in. And the people, the demographics are different. Everything about it is different.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important to the world that we have more sustainable, kind of create a more sustainable environment. Because if we're not careful, it's really going to hurt us down the line.
Well, what's happened is since that 1998, I call it the bleeding edge stage of my career, which we've now moved to the leading edge. Okay. So the leading edge of my career has now been, where building science has caught up to be able to be so precise in the analytics and in what we're doing. The technology is here. Everything is here now that we're able to bring this. Now all we need is the wherewithal to collaborate and bring builders in to get them to move forward into building this type of product. These products are different. They're very high performance. Yeah. So I go from green there's lots of shades of green.
Yeah, there's LEED and there's all these certifications and there's so many little things.
There's so many levels. There's your Energy Star, which is your basic energy package, and then there's your high performance, what I call high performance on steroids package, where we're producing enough energy to completely carry a Helm of 4. In fact, I live the dream. So I live the story. So where we live. It's about 4,500 square feet, and it's $23 a month in utility bills.
Wow.
So all the houses that we're doing are the ones I'm doing in Florida right now are -2 on the HERS. That means it's generating more power than it's using, and they can now charge their electric vehicle.
Yeah.
So that's the next stage of the generation that I want to get to. That's the story I started 15 years ago. And I've been having to wait for everyone to catch up.
One of the things that you mentioned was there's all these different levels of green. I'm wondering as from a home builder's perspective and as maybe a homeowner, what's the differences between them and
building?
Yeah.
Great question. So building envelope is the key. So what type of building materials you're doing, how it off-gasses. As an example, concrete off-gasses for 100 years and creates carbon emissions in the air. Our worst emissions are homes and buildings, not transportation, which is shocking to most people to learn. Our houses are still emitting. The older ones, not so much anymore, but then they're not being upgraded, you know. So there isn't a lot of inventory for this type of product. So structured insulated panels would be one product that we do a lot. ICF, insulated concrete form, which is less emitting for certain regions like Dallas. That you don't want to build certain products in certain regions depending on what your climate zone is. So there's a lot of pieces that go to the story to being able to analyze this to find out what the best building envelope is for you.
Okay. And I'm curious, from your perspective of what, for most builders, they're not kind of thinking about the green energy because that's kind of more of a maintenance down the road. So why do you think home builders should kind of care about it?
Well, they should care about it. For one thing, if you don't adapt, you will die.
So
you have to adapt. Okay, that's number one. And number two, they need to be able to build faster And with the supply chain being broken the way it is now, and us having so many issues. I mean, right now we're waiting on projects for one thing.
Yeah.
You know,
So, like,
cabinets.
things
Cabinets
like
are on a
lumber-
ship in LA right
Yeah,
now. But
getting construction workers to come on site, lumber costs have gone up, and then as you know, like the housing market's gotten crazy. So it's just like the whole system of logistics around our supply chain, like you mentioned, is changed dramatically.
And well, the whole system's design. Let's talk about that. That's the
Okay.
envelope. That's what I'm talking about with the envelope. The whole system's design kind of product is it's kind of built on site, but it's in pieces. It works like Legos, like some of these products. In other words, they cut about 3 to 4 months off of their building timelines because the actual envelope goes up in days. And that's built in the factory, shipped, hopefully close by. We have another SIP panel company that's opening in Oklahoma right now that's going to be servicing Texas.
Okay.
So I'm really trying to get the builders to drink the Kool-Aid now because this just makes more sense. If I know I can build in 9 months instead of 15 months.
That's huge because time is money.
Exactly. And they don't need the workforce.
Yeah.
They can go up and put up a house, like the walls come and you just lay them. I've watched them go up. It's insane. You can actually go online and look at ICF or structured insulated panels. My favorite company is Extreme Panel. Hi, Don. So
Yeah, because most builders, when they think green, they're thinking, oh, this is going to be so much more expensive. It's going to take much more time. I don't know if it's going to be a better ROI. But I have a feeling based on what you've been talking about that's not the case at all.
We proved it.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, let's talk about the green appraisal piece.
Okay.
So on the other side of it, we're finding that these homes are selling at an 8 to 10% higher premium than an average conventional home right now. In fact, there's a study in 2019 from the U.S. Green Building Council in Austin, UT, that you can find online. It was green homes in the Austin and Round Rock area, and they proved that they quantified that we're at an 8% premium on this type of home. Well, it's going up because on commercial we're at 20% on LEED. So if you're LEED high certified, you can get a 20% higher premium on your building. So commercial is already ahead of the curve. You can gauge what's happening residentially by looking at what's happening commercially.
Because they're kind of leading the edge, and then the homes are kind of like falling behind.
Yeah. So we're late adapter markets. Austin was an early adapter market. Boulder, I cut my teeth on the Boulder market initially because that was where a lot of things were happening that I was able to learn and grow my knowledge base.
Okay. One of the things you mentioned too is you're trying to get more builders to get and kind of follow this green philosophy, and you mentioned that you have like ways you work with other builders to kind of like structure deals. I'm curious about how you do that.
Well, there's lots of ways to carve it out. It depends on what you're doing. If you're doing a one-off custom spec home, as an example, we would just help you take down the land. We at Security National and Green Energy Money, we partner together to be able to facilitate the financing and funding for these types of projects. So we can do literally everything from investment to ground up construction, land acquisition, all the way through end to end, and the permanent takeout on the back end.
Do you also help with like master plans or like kind of like pocket communities?
That's my favorite flavor.
Okay, nice.
So I love to be able to structure those, and many times we'll get land owners to participate, and that's always a good way to segue into the economics of the project to make it work, and then we take them out of their equity position once the infrastructure and everything is in. So there's different stages, different places, but the bottom line is anything can be structured and anything can be multiplied once you find the formula, right?
I see. I'm curious too, what's your thoughts on like tiny homes and like tiny home communities? And I don't know if you've done any type of work with like tiny homes before.
Well, actually, there on my website, greenenergy.money, there is a video for I did a tiny home conference in Houston about 5-6 years ago. It was packed. I'd never seen so many people. I was kind of fell over when I walked in the building because it must have been 500 people there that were all curious about it. It's a niche. It's a niche.
Yeah.
I don't I mean, I'm not against it at all. I just want to say I don't have any judgment or any conversation. It's just very hard to finance.
Yes,
So
it is.
on those, you would want to get a land loan, a long-term land loan, and then finance the house yourself. I mean, that would be the best way to do it. You know, is to maximize your land. It's just too hard to comp out when you've got especially for the tiny 500. The key, Fannie Mae's guidelines state that 650 square feet is kind of the minimum they like to see.
So otherwise, you can't get a normal like federal loan or government loan. You have to do a private loan for tiny homes. That's why it's really difficult.
Yeah. And if they're not on foundations, it's
Yeah.
like you're just doing, you really are basically financing the land if it's on wheels, you know.
Yeah.
But I am a big proponent of the not so big house.
Okay, not so big house. So
Right.
that's like 50 to 1,000 or something.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
1,000, 850 to 1,200. And
Have
that
you
price.
seen that development, the Plum Creek in Kyle, Texas, where they have a bunch of like, I think it's like, they're kind of like apartment style homes. They're homes, but they're like not so big style. So like all of them around 800 to 1,200, and a bunch of homes like that they do for rent.
Well, I think that's the new paradigm that we're
Yeah.
looking at. I mean, these McMansions and the property taxes alone are just, I mean, people are carving out. I just saw an article the other day that someone took a big McMansion and made it a boarding house and is now renting rooms to people that are displaced, transitional housing. So it's become a real big trend, you know, considering what we're handling with the COVID and the markets.
I think too is just like Austin as a whole, like the city is growing so much and there's not enough homes, and they're trying to, more and more people are moving here, that they're trying to find like these ways to have like maybe like smaller houses and like have more of a community feel.
Well, the Zoomers and the Millennials, my heart breaks, and I want to make a difference for that market and being able to provide attainable housing and sustainable. So the word is attainable with sustainable.
Yeah.
So both of those, when you can buy a house that you can afford and you don't have a $300 utility bill every month, that gives you more buying power, you know, to be able to afford. So I think that the biggest issue we're having in every city right now is attainable housing and sustainable, you know, after our snowpocalypse.
Yeah. Yeah, we learned how much like that had an effect on just like Texas.
And here's what I would say to every investor and every homeowner. If you don't adapt, you're going to die. I mean, literally. I mean, that's the reality we're facing. If we think ERCOT and the state of Texas is going to shore this up anytime soon, we're mistaken.
Yeah.
So we're looking at climate change no matter which way we cut it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to stand on a soapbox about it, but really it's a serious issue.
I'm curious too, is like as homeowners, when they're looking for like properties and they're trying to go more and like kind of think more green energy, more sustainable, like what kind of things should they look for in their new homes so that they can kind of contribute to moving forward and making a more sustainable future?
Well, there is I'm not sure where, so the HERS, the Home Energy Rating System, HERS certification is a miles per gallon for your home. So that's what we use for economic purposes for the green appraisals now. So if you're building, you'd want to vet your builder. I have a lot of good blogs on my greenenergy.money website that talk about, you know, these stories, like how do you pick your builder, how do you pick your land, how do you, you know, what do you look for and these things. But I would say if they don't know what a HERS is, I would start with that.
Start there and then kind of work around.
And if that means they're not highly educated in this market, because anyone who's in the know on high performance would know what a HERS is.
Okay, I'm going to make sure to include that in the show notes of this video.
Yeah, you can actually HERS on my website is a link to the HERS and the whole story. But the home energy rating is like a miles per gallon.
Okay.
And 0 is net zero, and 100 is the average home in America.
One of the things I've heard is this new community in like the northeast pocket is coming up, Whisper Valley.
Whisper Valley.
Whisper Valley.
I'm very
I've heard that it's like a zero consumption. No.
Well, I don't want to talk about that. I know
Okay.
I know the folks and the developers in
Okay.
there, and I have respect for them. But it's definitely a good start.
It's
a
good
great
step
start.
It's a good step in the right direction.
And they're educating the market, and there's I think that they're doing the right thing. At least they're on
taking good steps in the right direction.
Yes.
I feel like there's a lot of these newer communities now all around Austin. They're forming up. They're trying to kind of be more energy efficient and kind of more in that green direction.
Well, there have to be, because the other side of the story is mandates. So the states and counties are mandating. Austin's pretty rigid with our green building program here, our building codes. It's called the International Energy Conservation Code, IECC.
Okay.
So IECC drives what performance the builders have to build at. Right now, the builders in Austin have to build to pretty much a 65% efficiency, more efficient than the average home. 65% better.
Okay.
They're moving next year. It's going to the 2020 code they're adopting, and that's going to mean they've got to the builders have to adapt again and get even more performance into their homes. So next year is going to be a real big wake-up call for a lot of builders that don't get on board to doing this now, because when their building codes get increased, they don't know what to do and they have to retool. It's a really big ordeal. It's a big undertaking to be able, when you're a builder and you've got all your subs lined up and you're all set, and then all of a sudden you put a new product in the mix and you've got to learn how to do it and you've got to train your team and cross over. It can be problematic and challenging, and that's why there's a lot of resistance to it, and I get it, but you got to do it. I mean, it's just the reality we're in. So
Yeah, I understand that completely.
well, you don't have to do it, but I would
Yeah,
say that
yeah.
you're probably not going to make a lot of sales in the future because what's going to happen is that the green builder inventory in Austin is growing so much now that they're going to be competing with that product, and they won't be able to.
And also, I think Austin's a very unique city where they really care about the sustainability and renewable energy and that whole green direction. Very like the people that we have here, they care about that quite a bit more.
Yes.
And so I think, like, as a builder, if you don't care about it, like, it's going to hurt you on your bottom line. You just may not see it initially, but it's kind of trending in that direction.
Well, yes. And one of the things I would like to say to the builder audience out there is that these homes feel better. Their durability is much better. It's just a superior product to the average conventional home. So if you want to do the best you can and deliver the best product you can, this is where we need to drive the market now.
Okay. One of the things you mentioned something before I didn't get was like I think you said something around net zero home, and I'm not familiar with what that is.
Okay, that means that it's producing as much energy as it's generating.
Okay.
So I'm net zero. I'm producing enough energy to carry the load of my home.
I see.
So
you
but
could theoretically be off the grid
Right.
based off that, based off the description.
But I want to bring in the solar story right now
Okay.
because that has been very problematic for a lot of people. Their mindset is that if it's green, it's solar, which isn't true.
I see.
Solar, it's the building envelope.
Okay.
You're investing in the building, not the solar panels. Right now, solar panels are costing 20 to 25 grand.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Before tax credits, we're still getting a 50. I think it's 15% this year.
Okay.
The tax credits.
Okay.
So, and that's going to be reduced. They're now sunsetting that program. So in the next 3 years, you won't get a tax credit anymore, which is the right thing to do, because back when they started this program, solar cost 50 to 75K.
Yeah.
So it's gone down. We're now adapted to a very technologically advanced, building market.
Okay.
So we're able to do this. Even a conventional builder can get there pretty easily at least the minimal, what I consider below 60 on the HERS. So if you look at a thermometer on the HERS, the worst house is 100. 0 is the best house.
Can you so you've mentioned like the model, the HERS. Can you kind of give because not all my listeners are familiar with that. If you can kind of give a brief description of what that
Well,
is.
Home Energy Rating System was developed by ResNet, and they created a miles per gallon analysis, a way to analyze what your home's energy load is, how much it's going to cost you in energy savings or an energy cost and how much you're saving. So those analytics are very, very important to be able to know that you're getting the right product. To me, it's quality assurance when you get a HERS rating that's below 60. You know, it means that I've got to, so you want to get your building envelope as optimal as possible, and then add solar. Then you get your net zero.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Okay, so you want to have that, like, have a solid house and then kind of focus on the solar part second.
Yes. So you got to save energy before you make energy.
I see.
So you don't. Everybody goes backwards. The solar industry, in my experience, has shot themselves in the head. A lot because they go and try to upsell. I can get you a 9 kW system. I can give you a bigger system. It's like everything's big in Texas, right?
Yeah, we do.
So
like
I'm gonna give you a bigger system, but your building envelope's terrible. Okay, so you're looking at a building envelope that is not performing, and now you're adding extra solar. If you take the solar off, you still got a crappy house. It's leaking, and now you need a bigger solar system, but it's still uncomfortable.
So if I just bought an older house, so you're saying, it sounds like you're suggesting solar isn't the first thing I should do. I should first focus on the house. Like what steps should I take if I have an older house that isn't maybe like green friendly?
I would start with an energy audit.
Okay,
and
so
Austin offers, in the city of Austin, you can get an auditor, and I think for pretty much free right now. I'm not sure. I think they still have that program open. You can also, before you start refinancing and trying to upgrade it, you want to get your budget in place. You've got to line up your builder. There's a lot of pieces that have to be done on it. And then you can get a HERS analysis on what the performance will be. And what it does, you can reverse engineer that and say, what can I do to make it better? If I added X to this.
Yeah, like window insulation. Or
if I upgraded this, or I changed the orientation. You start with orientation. Everything is about where the house is sitting. You do not want a western exposure in Texas.
Okay, so if you could pick where your house, direction of your house, what would you pick?
North.
Facing north.
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, you don't want to face the west because you're going to be getting the hottest sun, and it's going to bake your house unless you do big overhangs.
Okay, so west is kind of like the worst option
for our region.
For our region.
Yeah.
And then north is a little bit better because the thing is with west is it's facing the sun.
Yeah.
So that's just
Or you could face east. There's different. It depends. I'm not saying that you don't want west.
Okay, so you just don't want west, but there's not necessarily one set rule. It's just kind of like you just have to be at the site and to make an evaluation.
Yeah. As an example, you'd want your garage to be on your western exposure with no windows and no doors, so you have a barrier between your garage and your home.
Oh.
That's the ideal place to put that
makes sense,
garage would be on the west
from the west,
side.
like the sun rises in the west, sets in the east, and that makes sense.
But it's not possible sometimes due to the orientation of the lots.
Yeah.
And,
sometimes we'll have the land layout, like, because as a builder, you're thinking ROI, how many units can I put in, and you're just kind of following that guidelines.
Yes, but number 1 is orientation, then 2 is building envelope, and then 3 is generating power. That's how it works. I do want to talk about the preconceptions.
Okay, what are the preconceptions?
The preconceptions are it costs too much, it's too hard to do, and I won't get a payback. And that's just not true anymore. Mm-hmm. So people are still holding that old paradigm of thought, those thought processes from. I mean, actually, in the 80s, we got a black eye. When Carter, approved the solar program, people were putting solar, and they were giving tax credits galore for solar, and that was when solar was 150,000 or 100,000, So, but then they had no one to maintain it. They had no operations and maintenance in stores. So all these solar, and also it got obsolete within a decade. And people still have old solar panels up on their home that are inoperable, that they just never took down. So it gave the industry a little bit of a black eye where people thought, it costs too much, I can't afford it. That's where the whole conversation happened. But that's not true anymore. The price points have come down. If you're building custom, it doesn't even make sense to not be green.
Yeah.
Because you're already upgrading.
You're paying the premium already for doing one home.
Right.
And it's not that much of an additional cost, or if any, sometimes.
Exactly.
But I understand. So for custom, it's just like you should just do it.
Right.
And then spec, it's more of like a little bit more of a long-term investment that would be beneficial to the homeowners.
Right. And that can be analyzed. The economics on that can be very transparently shown to the potential buyer. We can show how the difference. In fact, I'm doing some projects in Georgia, Florida, and Minnesota right now, and I'm working on green appraisals and putting the analytics together for those projects, as well as some projects here in Texas.
Okay.
So different regions, it becomes very interesting because you get to see, how do people react in cold weather? What kind of things happen, versus our climate? So it's fascinating for me anyway. I'm weird. That's why I'm in Austin.
I mean, yeah. No, but I love people that are really passionate about like whatever topic there is. Even if I'm not interested in it, their passion is just like really infectious. And that's like a part of really how we met. Just to let the listeners know how we met is I was a seller agent for a lot, and I typically do large acreages, but I just happened to be selling a lot, and the buyer happened to be using Teresa as their lender, and that's how we kind of got connected together and kind of worked. And because I do a lot of land development and land sales, and she works with a lot of builders and does lending.
And it's a vibrational match.
Yeah. One of the things I'm really curious about is...
I had to throw that in there.
One of the things I'm curious about is how you were doing lending, and then how did green energy, and how did you combine these two together? Because in my opinion, these things don't necessarily go together.
They do. Well, it's just that we segment everything. We compartmentalize everything. But it's no different. The only thing different really about a green building is the appraisal valuation.
Okay.
As far as the lending side goes. Now it's way different on the builder side. Between, a conventional home and, production built, generally speaking, to a custom, we see a night and day. What's interesting is we're seeing more of a trend now with families and people coming together to buy contiguous lots that are not, now since COVID, that realize, if I'm going to homeschool my kid and I'm going to be stuck at home, I want to be with my friends and family, or, people that we go to school, that our kids play together. So we're seeing a lot of trends for people coming in and buying these lots and building. I'm doing a 4-pack right now, and I've got a 5-pack on the table right now that we're working on. So these small little pocket, those are kind of, anywhere from 5 to 10 units all the way to 50. I consider those the small, and I think that's the size that's appropriate as far as a community design is a master plan. That's a whole nother, dimension. But this is, particularly, I think, trending more than living in the city and living in big community, planned unit developments.
Okay. We're going to start kind of wrapping things up, but I want to have the listeners know a little bit more about you, and so I've got kind of some rapid fire questions for you.
Sure.
So when you think of the word successful, what does that come to mind, or who's the first person that comes to mind, and why?
Well, I'd have to say, I've got so many heroes. It's really hard to choose.
You don't need, just choose like one of them that just pops to mind when you.
Well, I guess Elon Musk.
Okay.
Elon Musk would be. I mean, he's super successful and incredibly, brilliant.
Yeah, I really like is how he's pushing the envelope forward. Like, even though he's massively successful already, he has all the money and he could easily retire and do whatever. He's trying to push society so that when he leaves this world, he'll put us in a better place than we were before, with like his whole battery technology and about stuff he does with SpaceX. So he's really pushing the envelope. Well,
I'm very interested in his work and what he's doing with these communities and this new city design that he's working on in West Texas. Okay. So, and actually his new facility is going to be out in Bastrop County.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a new Tesla factory is opening really very, in the Bastrop.
Yeah, it's like the Del Valley area.
Yeah,
and so he's pushing out further out for another. Yeah, I really. He's moved here too, isn't he? Yeah,
he drank the Kool-Aid.
He drank the Kool-Aid, but he drank the Kool-Aid. Yeah, and he's powered through.
Yes, I'd love to meet him. Elon, if
I ever make a connection, I'll see what I can do.
Well, you're only one person away from everyone now.
Yeah, I've learned that. That's true.
one degree of separation.
I'm curious, in terms of like books, is there any books that you've gifted to other people or people have gifted to you?
Absolutely.
Is there any book that comes to mind?
There's two. Gaviotos.
Okay.
It's Inventing a New World. It's an old book. It was one of the first books I read when I was in the Bleeding Edge in the Taos area, and it's the story of this community in Colombia.
Okay.
That the swings and the school generated their own power for the school. They built tunnels underneath for air conditioning, and it had hospitals with retractable roofs. It's one of the most ingenious community cultures and designs that I've ever, witnessed. And I'd say the second book is, gosh, now I can't remember. It's architecture. It's
An architecture book.
It's actually phenomenal, and I found out that harvested wood is actually a better product than some of the other things we're using.
I see.
So it's less emissions. So than siding and the things that we put on our property. So we have to start thinking about carbon as well as energy efficiency. There's a double.
So yeah, they kind of go hand
It's
in
a
hand.
balance. Yeah. And it really does go into real estate. It's a perfect fit. It's a perfect story. But
And so tree planting really helps with that type of thing as well, correct?
absolutely.
Okay. Kind of one of my last questions is there something that you believe in that other people think is kind of insane? I know you're talking about the green stuff, but I'm curious if there's anything else.
Well, I practice Taoism.
Okay.
So I have a very,
I think I remember you talking about your interest in like Tai Chi.
yeah, I'm a Tai Chi red belt, and
Okay.
I've done a lot of work. I've got like multiple. I'm a Reiki master, so I have another side. But if
see.
you see the theme here,
All the theme is like
all of it's
balance in the world,
all
and
of it's
sustainability.
Yeah,
and
and
just
so
being more centered as a human being.
if you're not sustainable inside, you can't be sustainable outside. So you have to live your life. And also, I think it's really important to live on purpose. People that are unhappy, it's because they don't have a purpose, and they're not serving others. So it's time to shift our mindset from it's not all about me anymore to it's about us. We're
Exactly.
inclusive of everyone else. We're all in this together. We're on the Earth ship here.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, and I think as a world, like, it's important to make money, but it's also important to like kind of give back. Especially since we're really lucky to live in the U.S. where we have a lot of opportunities. So to kind of wrap things up, go on?
I was just going to say the 4 Ps:
What are the 4 Ps?
planet, people, profit, and purpose.
Okay, when you first said 4 Ps, you know what I think of? It's kind of it's a sports things. 4 Ps. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
There you go.
That's just when I think of the 4 Ps. That's funny.
Well, there you go. I got another spin on it.
Yeah. So if builders or homeowners want to get in touch with you for like your lending needs, or builders want to work with you kind of learn more about greens, just the green business and how they can kind of take that step forward, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you or reach out to you?
greenenergy.money, and you can Teresa at greenenergy.money
Okay.
and you can find a lot of information on there.
Okay.
So.
Well, with that, we'll wrap up the show, and till next time.